Okay, here's a thought. What if humanity's biggest, oldest enemies, like famine, plague, and war, what if they're mostly behind us? I mean, for thousands of years, right? That was it. That was the constant fear shaping everything. So if we're actually getting a handle on that stuff, what on earth comes next? What's the new big human project?
That's exactly the really provocative idea we're digging into today. This deep dive looks at this perspective that maybe humanity's focus has genuinely shifted. We're moving away from just surviving those ancient threats and towards these honestly audacious new goals. Things like immortality, finding ultimate bliss, maybe even achieving a kind of divinity. We'll explore where these, well, huge ideas come from and what they might actually mean for all of us.
Yeah, and it's heady stuff, right?
Yeah.
So to help you navigate it all without your brain melting, we've pulled the key insights from a really fascinating source. We'll hit the surprising facts, the big questions, kind of give you the shortcut to getting your head around it. So let's unpack this. First off, famine. When we talk about famine historically, it wasn't just, skipping lunch. The source calls it excruciating torment, that constant gnawing uncertainty about your next meal. That was normal for our ancestors. Think about the French famine in the 1690s. 15% of the population died. 15%. Or China's Great Leap Forward, tens of millions starved. It's hard for us to even really grasp that scale today.
It really is. Yeah. And what's so striking is how much that's changed. Technology, economics, politics, they've kind of woven together this global safety net. Now, don't get me wrong, hundreds of millions still go hungry, that's undeniable.
Yeah.
But actual mass starvation, it's become exceptional. And when it happens now, it's almost always down to human politics, to conflict, not just a harvest failing. Global trade, aid, social programs, that most parts of the world, even if you lose everything, you're unlikely to literally starve to death. It's a massive, often overlooked human achievement.
Okay, and then plague, disease. Can you even imagine living in ancient Athens or like medieval Florence, just knowing you or your kids could die next week from something? The Black Death wiped out, maybe 75 to 200 million people, a quarter of Eurasia, maybe more. It completely changed the world.
Absolutely terrifying. Makes you wonder how societies even functioned.
Yeah.
But then the 20th century brought this medical miracle. Vaccinations, antibiotics, basic hygiene improvements. They fundamentally changed our relationship with infectious disease. Smallpox is the classic example, right?
Sure.
Infected 15 million in 1967, killed 2 million. By 1979, gone, eradicated. Globally, doctors today aren't just relying on luck. They have actual knowledge, tools, science.
And the third horseman, war. Historically, war was just normal. It was taken for granted. Peace was the weird thing, the temporary and precarious state. Even right before World War I in 1913, France and Germany just expected war was coming. It was the default setting.
Which makes our current era, despite all its problems, pretty unique. The source calls it the new peace. Partially, it's the nuclear deterrent, right? War between superpowers became a mad act of collective suicide, so they had to find other ways. But it's also the economy. It shifted. It's not about conquering land for resources like gold or oil so much anymore. It's knowledge-based, and you can't really conquer knowledge with tanks. The source mentions Chekhov's law. The gun shown in Act 1 has to fire by Act 3. Well, since 1945 for the major powers, that gun's been on the wall, but it hasn't fired.
Okay, but hang on. What about terrorism? That feels like a constant war. It dominates the news.
That's a really important point. The source frames terrorism as a strategy of weakness. It's incredibly effective at spreading fear, much more than causing actual large-scale material damage compared to historical wars or even, say, modern health issues. Yeah, look at the numbers. In 2010, obesity-related diseases killed around 3 million people globally. Terrorism killed about 7,700. The analogy used is a fly trying to destroy a china shop by annoying a bull until the bull smashes everything. The terrorists provoke, but the scale of the damage. It all depends on our reactions. Our fear is their amplifier.
So does that mean these things, famine, plague, war, are actually solved or just different?
I think the term used is manageable challenges rather than unsolvable problems. It's a key distinction. It's not saying suffering doesn't exist. It absolutely does. But it is recognizing that, collectively, humanity has made incredible progress in containing these existential threats, moving them from unpredictable catastrophes to problems we largely know how to manage, even if we don't always do it perfectly.
Okay, so if those ancient struggles are becoming manageable, where does all that human energy and ambition go now? This is where it starts to feel a bit sci-fi, right?
Right.
So with those old battles less intense, we're lifting our eyes to new horizons. And the first big one is immortality. Seriously. You have people, especially in places like Silicon Valley, Peter Thiel, for example, talking about death as a technical problem, something to be solved, overcome. The goal is literally to live forever.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild. And it's important to distinguish here. Life expectancy has doubled in the last century or so. That's huge. But that's mostly been about conquering early death, infant mortality, infections, accidents, pushing past the sort of natural human lifespan, maybe 70s, 80s, like Galileo or Newton managed without modern medicine. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
That means tackling aging itself at a fundamental biological level.
And just stop and think about what that world looks like. Like, your boss is 120. The dictator who took power 50 years ago is still there at 138. The source points out the market of eternal youth would be basically infinite, wouldn't it? Who wouldn't pay anything to get their 25-year-old body back?
Exactly. Then there's the second big goal, the pursuit of bliss, happiness. Now, philosophers like Epicurus saw this as a personal journey, right? Finding inner peace. But from the Enlightenment onwards, thinkers like Bentham started framing it as a collective project. The greatest happiness of the greatest number that becomes the goal of the state, the economy, science itself. Happiness isn't just a feeling. It's something we should engineer, measure, maximize for everyone.
But here's the weird thing, the paradox. We have more wealth, more comfort, more security than ever before in history, and are we actually happier? It's not obvious. Suicide rates in many wealthy countries are shockingly high. South Korea's tripled since '85 during its economic boom. And in the U.S., self-reported happiness levels haven't really budged since the 1950s, despite all the gadgets and GDP growth. What's going on there?
It's a huge question. From a purely biochemical view, the source suggests happiness is just pleasant sensations. And evolution designed those sensations to be fleeting, ephemeral sales gimmicks, is the phrase used. They reward survival and reproduction. A squirrel can't feel endless bliss from one nut, or would starve. Our own desires work similarly. The job, the house, the partner. The excitement is often in the chase. And the satisfaction doesn't last forever. It keeps us striving.
And now technology is stepping in, right? We're not just relying on natural highs. You've got drugs like Ritalin, Prozac, even direct electrical brain stimulation. People are already using these to manage moods, focus, anxiety. The source even raises the prospect of happier soldiers and more efficient armies by chemically managing fear or trauma. That's a bit unsettling.
It definitely presents a choice, a fork in the road. You have the biochemical path, engineering an unending stream of pleasant sensations, constant bliss chemically induced. Or you have something like the Buddhist path, reducing our craving for sensations altogether, finding peace not by chasing highs, but by understanding sensations are just temporary vibrations and letting go of the need for them. Which way do we go? That's a massive question for the future.
Okay, immortality, bliss. And then the third one, this feels like the biggest leap. Attaining divinity. Humans trying to upgrade themselves into gods, gaining godlike control of their own biological substratum, basically hacking ourselves.
And again, this isn't just fantasy. We're seeing early steps. Monkeys controlling robotic arms with their thoughts via brain implants. That's happening. You can buy commercial headsets, relatively cheap, that supposedly let you control devices with your mind, picking up electrical signals. It's rudimentary now, of course, but the trajectory is there.
But the implication? If we can actually re-engineer our minds, our consciousness, does that mean Homo sapiens, as we currently exist, just disappears? Does human history, as a story about us, just end? Because we become something else entirely.
That's precisely the argument. This third project, divinity, kind of encompasses the other two. We want the power to escape death and suffering, sure. But once we have that power, what else do we do with it? Think about it. Ancient gods were prayed to for rain, for good harvests, but they couldn't guarantee it. Today, science builds desalination plants. We can guarantee water supply in ways ancient gods couldn't. We're already surpassing them in practical power. And then there's that really chilling comparison. How we treat animals today, think industrial farming, pigs in tiny crates suffering intensely. The source suggests that might be the best model for how future superhumans could view and treat regular unenhanced humans.
Wow. Okay. So we're getting powerful, maybe too powerful, pushing boundaries. But are there hidden costs? What are we maybe losing sight of in this relentless push forward?
Well, one crucial point is this paradox of historical knowledge. Basically, the more we learn about history and how things change, the faster things change, which means our knowledge becomes outdated more quickly. Predicting the future gets harder, not easier. Like predicting Europe in 1050 from 1016. Probably doable. Predicting Europe in 2050 from 2016, almost impossible. Things change too fast now.
So history isn't about predicting the future then, it's more about what? Understanding the present. The source says it's about loosening the grip of the past, helping us imagine alternative destinies. Like knowing the history of the lawn, how it went from an aristocratic luxury to a suburban must-have, shows us these things aren't inevitable. We can question them, choose differently. It frees us up.
Exactly. And when we look at why humans dominate the planet, it's not because we're individually smarter. Our brains might even be smaller than Neanderthals. No, our dominance comes from being the only species capable of cooperating flexibly in large numbers. That's our unique trick.
You see that everywhere, right? Rome beat Greece through better organization, better cooperation. And why do some revolutions fail? Romania 89, Egypt 2011. People can unite to overthrow someone.
Yeah.
But they often lack the ongoing, efficient organization needed to actually govern afterwards. It's that coordination piece.
And here's the twist. Our greatest achievements, pyramids, moon landings, mapping DNA, they all come from this mass cooperation. But ironically, realizing our power comes from the collective, from the network, that success actually undermines our belief in the sacredness of human beings, in the unique, special individual. If it's the system, not the soul, where does that leave liberalism?
That hits deep, doesn't it? Because our whole system is built on individual rights, individual choice. And it connects to how we actually make decisions. It's often not cold mathematical logic, right? It's warm social logic, driven by these ancient gut feelings, these evolutionary algorithms. Like in the ultimatum game, people reject unfair money because it feels wrong, even if it costs them. Or that monkey freaking out over getting a cucumber when the other one gets a grape. We're wired for fairness, for social comparison, not just pure rationality.
And that social wiring is how we build large societies. Through shared belief in imagined orders. Things like gods, nations, money, they aren't tangible, but we believe in them collectively, and that creates rules, trust, meaning. Think of the Crusades, people died believing they'd go to heaven. Writing helped solidify these beliefs too. Think of Sousa Mendes saving thousands with Visa's pieces of paper representing an official fiction. Or the opposite. China's famine worsened by false reports, belief in flawed data.
Yeah, but you gotta admit, these systems, these imagined orders, they work in a way. They judge themselves by their own rules, right? An ancient Egyptian official would say things were great because pyramids got built, taxes got collected. Even if the average peasant's life maybe wasn't actually better than a hunter-gatherer's, the system declared itself successful.
And the modern world's dominant imagined order. It's this powerful alliance between scientific progress and economic growth. It runs on trust in the future, which we call credit. It's so pervasive that even a disaster like the Ebola outbreak becomes a stock market opportunity for pharma companies working on a cure. Growth finds a way.
Which leads to this bigger pie idea that growth solves everything. Bad marriage. Grow the economy. Political unrest. Grow the economy. It's achieved this almost religious status, hasn't it? Leaders everywhere bet their entire careers on delivering growth.
And it feels possible because knowledge, unlike oil or gold, is seen as a growing resource. The more you use it, the more you discover. The scientific revolution itself was fueled by admitting ignorance, realizing we didn't know everything, which opened the floodgates to discovery.
There's a giant elephant in the room, isn't there? The ultimate nemesis, ecological collapse. Climate change. We know about it. There's tons of data. But globally, humankind seems unwilling to make serious economic, social, or political sacrifices. Oh, look at Kyoto, Paris. Emissions keep going up. It's like we're driving towards a cliff with our eyes wide open.
It's a terrifying disconnect. And it leads to this really dark possibility mentioned in the source. The high-tech Noah's Ark. The idea that maybe the elite don't need to solve climate change for everyone. Maybe they believe technology will allow them to build a salvation just for themselves, leaving billions behind. The quote is stark. People who believe in a heavenly afterlife should not be given nuclear weapons, end quote. And similarly, maybe people who believe tech will offer an escape hatch for the few shouldn't be in charge of global ecology. It's a heavy thought.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but related to this trust in tech, how is science itself starting to chip away at the foundations of liberalism? Things like free will, the individual self.
Right, this is crucial. The source calls free will the elephant in the laboratory. When neuroscientists look inside the brain, they find neurons, hormones, genes, physical processes obeying physical laws. They don't find a soul or a little self pulling the levers independently. Free will, from this perspective, looks like an illusion.
And there's actual experimental evidence, right? Stuff that's pretty unsettling. Brain scanners predicting your choice before you're even aware you've made it. And those roborats working just for brain stimulation, feeling nirvana without any sense of being forced. Or that journalist testing the sniper attention helmet, feeling her inner monologue, her self-doubt just shut off. It makes you think. Could free will become just another purchasable upgrade?
And it's not just free will. The idea of a single unified self is also under pressure from science. Think about the difference between your experiencing self and your narrating self. The experiencing self lives through every moment, the pain of a long procedure, the boredom of a commute. But the narrating self, that's the storyteller in your head. It picks and chooses, edits, creates a coherent narrative. Kahneman's studies show this clearly. People's memory of pain, like in a colonoscopy, depends heavily on the peak intensity in the end, not the duration. The narrating self discounts boring stretches and smooths over bad endings if possible. It creates a story that makes sense, even if it misrepresents the actual experience.
That's fascinating. It explains so much, like the "our boys didn't die in vain" thing after a war. The narrative needs to justify the sacrifice. Or why people pour more money into failing projects. The story demands it makes sense eventually. So if the self is just another imaginary story, like nations or gods or money, what happens when algorithms start writing, or at least heavily influencing that story for us? This seems to lead to some very real practical threats.
Yes, exactly. The source lays out three main possibilities, three threats to liberalism as we know it. One, humans just become economically and militarily useless. Algorithms and robots do the important jobs better. Two, humans remain valuable collectively, but individuals lose authority. Decisions are made by the network, by the algorithm, not by your gut feeling. Three, maybe only a small elite, perhaps biologically or technologically enhanced superhumans, actually retain value and authority.
We can already see hints of the military shift, right? It's not about mass armies of conscripts anymore. It's drones, cyber warfare, high-tech specialists, fewer humans needed in the line of fire.
And the absolutely critical concept here is that intelligence is decoupling from consciousness. Think about that. AI can now beat humans at complex pattern recognition tasks, chess, Go, medical diagnosis, driving. These systems have high intelligence but zero consciousness. They don't feel anything. And for armies, for corporations, what matters is performance. So intelligence is mandatory, but consciousness is optional. If an unconscious algorithm drives better or diagnoses cancer more accurately, why prefer the conscious human? That's the chilling economic and military logic.
And the job displacement potential is just staggering. Telemarketers, 99% risk by 2033, according to one study. Chefs, 96%. Even highly skilled jobs like lawyers, doctors, IBM Watson diagnosing lung cancer with 90% accuracy versus 50% for humans. That's huge. They even mention AI composing music, convincingly soulful music. Apparently archaeologists are safe because there's not much profit in it. Small comfort.
And beyond jobs, think about external algorithms starting to know me far better than I know myself. Google tracking flu outbreaks from search terms. Health studies collecting vast biometric data. 23andMe mapping your genetic risks for $99. Imagine a future where Google, or something like it, monitors your health, your finances, your social interactions, and then advises you. Don't take that job. You should date this person, not that one. Watch this movie. You'll like it. Because it knows your patterns better than you do.
Which brings up that Cortana dilemma again. If I have conflicting selves, the one experiencing the moment, the one telling the story later, which me does the AI serve, whose interest does it optimize for when I ask it for advice? The short-term pleasure, the long-term narrative.
And underlying all this is our profound ignorance about consciousness itself, what the source calls gap the mind. Most psychological research is done on weird people. Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. That's a tiny, unrepresentative slice of humanity. We barely understand the full range of human consciousness, let alone the potential mental states of, say, Neanderthals with their bigger brains, or bats using echolocation, or whales. Our perspective is incredibly narrow.
And could this progress actually downgrade us? The source suggests techno-humanism may end up downgrading humans. Maybe the system prefers humans who are more predictable, less troubled by those disturbing human qualities like doubt, regret, or messy emotions. Kind of like how the agricultural revolution arguably downgraded animal mental abilities, making cows more docile, less curious for human convenience.
And ultimately, the goal of these emerging technologies might not be to serve our desires, but to control them. Look at modern psychiatry. Sometimes the goal seems to be using chemical solutions like Ritalin or Prozac to quiet inner turmoil, to make people fit the system better, arguing that those disruptive feelings are just imbalances. It can help people, absolutely, but it also shifts the locus of control.
Which leads us finally to this idea of dataism, like a new religion. where information flow is the ultimate good, the supreme value, more important than human experience, maybe even human life. Human experiences are just outdated biochemical algorithms in this view. The new commandment, listen to the algorithms, they know how you feel, better than you do. Aaron Swartz, the open access activist, is even presented as a potential martyr for this belief system.
Yeah, the core idea is that the universe is data flow. And humans were just a temporary tool for creating a more efficient processor, the Internet of all things. Algorithms are evolving, understanding patterns we can't grasp. Eventually, they'll manage everything. And in that world, Homo sapiens, with our messy, inefficient biochemical algorithms, we just vanish.
Right.
We become obsolete data points in a much larger system.
And you can see how our current political systems might just fail to keep up. Democracy, markets, they're based on human feelings and choices, which dataism sees as irrelevant noise. Can these structures process the sheer volume and speed of data needed to run things? Maybe not. So maybe petty-minded bureaucrats or perhaps entirely new, non-human algorithms end up taking charge simply because they're more efficient data processors. That's a lot to take in.
It really is. So that's our deep dive for today. We've gone from humanity's oldest enemies, famine, plague, war, to these incredible, maybe terrifying new ambitions. Immortality, bliss, divinity.
Yeah, and we've really wrestled with what it means when technology starts understanding and maybe even reshaping our deepest selves, our free will, our sense of identity. It all feels up for grabs in a way it never has before, potentially leading to a future where algorithms, not humans, are in the driver's seat.
It's definitely a future that requires some deep thinking, some conscious choices, not just letting technology sweep us along.
So the big question for you listening right now is, what does this all mean for you? If your feelings, your choices, even your sense of who you are could be decoded, predicted, maybe even designed by external systems, what kind of future do you actually want? Something to chew on. Keep digging deeper.
Stay curious, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.